Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Power Lounge. This is your place to hear authentic conversations from those who have power to share. My name is Amy Vaughan, and I am the owner and Chief Empowerment Officer of Together Digital, a diverse and collaborative community of women who choose to share their knowledge, power, and connections. You can join the movement at togetherindigital.com. And today we are joined by someone who is transforming how businesses think about implementing design. Karen Baker is the managing owner of Seven Concepts Inc. and has spent 26 years providing design thinking that isn't just about aesthetics. It's a powerful engine for business growth. Named by Forbes as one of three women breaking it might have been not three. It might have been a year there that got lost. Being noted as a woman by Forbes who was breaking the glass ceiling in male-dominated tech industry, Karen has been instrumental in reshaping how organizations like Pernod Ricard and Think Local First DC approach innovation. She brings a unique perspective on turning creativity into the competitive advantage, and we are thrilled to have her here with us to share her insights with our community. Welcome, Karen.
Ooh, excited to be here. Hey, everybody. Good to see you,
Hey,
Amy, as
good to see you
always.
too. And we've got a future masterclass coming up with you as well. It's great. Our last
Yes.
two podcast guests have been future masterclass facilitators too. So, if you can't get enough and you need some more Karen, you can join us for that as well. So we're excited for that, Karen. And again, just excited to hear your perspective and view on all things design and design thinking. You've been a champion for that for over two decades. And I'm really curious what first drew you to see design as more than just a creative tool, but an actual catalyst for business transformation.
That is such a great question. It really took me to go to Savannah College of Art and Design and get my
Love it
master's
there.
in design management. And it took someone else to see in me that this was a career path for me. A recruiter from SCAD saw my information for something else I had applied for, another master's degree, and hit me and said, I think this would be a great opportunity for me, for you to come into. So she sat with me here in DC.
Yeah.
And went through everything. I had no idea about design thinking at the time, didn't know anything about the methodology. And she was like, this is an opportunity for you to advance yourself in business, and in your career to learn a new skill. She was absolutely right. Yeah.
I love it. And what a way to pay it forward, to see that potential in somebody and then just go right for it and let them know. I love that. And I love SCAD. I worked for a video marketing company where we did a lot of animations.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so
because
we
they're
did
known
some
for that.
recruiting trips and we got to go down there, and what an amazing campus and school and such brilliant students. I was jealous. I went to an art college, but it was in Chicago and it was nothing like SCAD. But I loved
Well,
it there.
SCAD is a young school, so they
It
have
is.
an opportunity to, when we talk about innovation,
Yeah.
to be innovative because they are so young. So they keep, trying new things,
Yeah,
and this was a
absolutely.
program that was a new thing for them too,
That's so wonderful. I would also
Yeah.
give kudos to the Cleveland Institute of Art. We went up there as well, and their
Okay.
like not just their interior design, but their industrial design program
Oh,
looked really
yeah.
cool.
Okay.
I was just nerding out so hard. I was just thinking like all of these different ways again in which
Yeah.
design flows through and exists in every little thing that we do, and we
Yeah.
take it for granted so much.
Very much so. Very much so. I think because we've just been taught that it's the end,
Yeah.
and the only thing creative is what you see.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what you have the idea about. And the process of creating, we
Yes.
don't see that and often don't value it.
Definitely. And so I want to dig into that a little bit more too, in how your work with organizations across public, private, academic sectors, because you've really helped span them all. What's been one of the more surprising ways that you've seen design thinking help with business growth?
There are a couple. One I wasn't involved with, but I'll still mention it. The Smithsonian actually used design thinking. And they used it with their team in order to create better opportunities in programming. And then that's how I've used it, particularly with nonprofit organizations, as an opportunity to research and strategize before you just go putting a program into your organization that also then goes into the community as well. That Think Local First was a good opportunity for me to do that over the 4 years of continuing to create something new. Like what is the need? And then let's look at why there's a need. And then let's come up with a program that's going to fulfill that gap that's going to give people what they need. Then the business side, I had the opportunity to do it in banking, which was really exciting.
Yeah.
To meet with a marketing director, to meet with the person who's responsible for banking in the community and get their feedback. And out of that came a new banking program.
Wow.
So it was a new banking program for startups that didn't exist before. And we made some tweaks to it to ensure that we could, again, get more people into the institution as well. But that was design. We went through that entire process, of mapping, journey mapping, empathy, talking through interviews, all of that stuff to create a banking program. And those are the things that people don't know are happening when you do design and design thinking in particular.
Yeah, let's pause for that to kind of get to that, because I think, most of our members and listeners are pretty astute in like the space of digital advertising, marketing, design. But I just also realized that like I was probably 6 years into my career in an agency before I even heard the term design thinking. And so I want to remind our live listeners, you all can jump into the chat, ask questions if you have them. We'd love to hear them. But I want to back up for a second for those of our listeners who maybe don't know. We talked about design being the end product. How would you define design thinking? Because you alluded to some steps there, but how do we paint that picture for our listening audience?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a good thing to actually speak about, because people have taken design thinking as it's a methodology, first of all. So people are clear. It's a methodology, because I've had people ask, well, what does it do? Or is it a practice, or is it a theory? It's not a theory.
Right.
It's a methodology.
Yeah.
So, and the methodology is birthed out of the Design Council in the UK. So they use it's like a 5-diamond system. And so there's a process you go through with ideation, visualization, you go through planning, implementation, and execution. So there's some things that are very similar. Some people look at agile as one. However, design thinking is way ahead and came before that. And so that is the process that you go through when you're bringing a product, a program, a business that you're designing into existence. Those are the things that you go through to get there. So those are methodology practices that you use.
I love it. That's great. Yes, I recall when I learned about it, it was from a woman who had interned and then gotten hired into our agency.
Okay.
And she kind of took us through that steps, and we did a practice of like, I think I was like building and making like a little purse out of paper. And we were trying to solve the problem. And it was such a great kind of contextual way and hands-on way for us to learn. It has always stayed with me. And then I am super proud. I got to give her a shout out in case she's listening. Caitlin ended up, now she's at IDEO, which is like known for their design thinking, right?
Yeah,
so proud of her and the work she's done. So anyhow, yeah, another great company to follow if you're interested in like the design thinking and design methodology.
Yeah.
So you have applied this across corporate giants to nonprofit organizations, so everyone can benefit from this.
Yes.
How does your approach to design-driven changes shift between these different environments? Do they change, or do you modify them based on whoever you're consulting for?
That's a great question. And I'll go back when you said the problem solve. That's the purpose of design thinking, is about problem solving. You go in, it's how complex the problem is. And I think that answers your question. It really depends on how complex it is as to if there's any pieces within the methodology that we may not have to spend as much time in, is what happens. So, if you're talking about health equity, the work that we did with American Diabetes Association when I was at Boathouse, that was complex.
Yeah.
When we're talking about looking at mindset of those who are people living with type 2 diabetes and why they're not talking to their families or why they're not getting the patient education that they need, those are really complex problems. Yeah. So we were in research for months. Talking to people, going through medical conferences, trying to make sure that we fully understood enough before we even got into the space of designing anything. We were in that particular area of research, which is again part of design thinking.
Yes.
So it really depends on how complex the problem is as to how much you spend in each step. When you're looking at design as well too, because you want to be able to measure it. You want to know that there's great outcomes. In anything that you do with design. It's good design.
Good design. No, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Just thoughtful, intentional, purposeful. I think that's what I've always
Correct.
loved about our industry and what we do is like I've
Yeah.
always been creative, but I love using my
Yeah.
creativity to solve problems. I wish
Yes.
I could just make art for the sake of art and feel
Yeah.
satisfied. And sometimes I do, but it's like more
Yeah.
so I just really love being creative and solving problems. And that's, I think, what I've
Yes.
always loved about design thinking as well. For a lot of our members within the Together Digital organization, a lot of them are working in educating and really
Hmm.
fighting for the ability to elevate creative thinking within their organizations,
Hmm.
especially if maybe they're in house and not within an agency
Hmm.
or serving clients that are not, a creative type of company. What are some
Hmm.
strategies that you found most effective when advocating for design seat when it comes to the strategy?
Yeah, the biggest thing is advocating to have a seat at that table,
Mm-hmm.
because often you don't have a seat at the table. I think
It's so
I
true.
found more designers in my career that don't have a seat at the table from the beginning.
Yeah.
Everything is brought to them after decisions are made, and
Mm-hmm.
they have thoughts.
Yeah. Right.
They have expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that are decided in the strategy phase won't work
Yeah.
when you try to be in a planning through execution time frame. So
Mm-hmm.
even when you're in the visualization standpoint, it's an opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
have designers at the table, bringing that level of what you just spoke about, creativity
Yep.
to the conversation, to
Mm-hmm.
say this is what I could bring, and this is what would be even better than
Yeah.
what we have now. You got to have diverse voices, and designers at the table really bring a diverse voice as well too. So
Agreed.
lobby for a seat at that table,
Yeah.
to make sure that you can bring in your expertise and you get a chance to hear firsthand why decisions were made. Because when you get
Yes.
it at the end, you don't even know why decisions were made. You're just
Mm-hmm.
following suit, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
Yeah.
We aren't just here to make things look pretty, folks.
Not at
There's
all. I
like
always
so
say
much
that,
than just
Amy.
that.
Yeah, I
So,
always say that. Stop at looking at designers only to make things that look good.
yeah.
At the end, yeah, that's a part of it.
Sure.
Absolutely. But
Mm-hmm.
it is not the only,
Right.
the level of research that a designer has to do. There's quite a bit of work, even
Mm-hmm.
if they're in this graphic designer,
Yep.
even if they are an artist,
Mm-hmm.
they still have to do a level of research. Creative people have to do a level of research to
Oh,
bring that
yeah.
work to you as well. Yeah.
And there's nothing better than the two things coming together of something that is
Yeah.
beautifully designed and beautifully
Yeah.
functional.
That's right.
Right?
That's
It is
right.
the best feeling. And I think that's what I enjoyed so much about going through the industrial design portion of the,
Mm-hmm.
the schools we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Is because it was that functionality meets beauty. And it was just like, it
Mm-hmm.
feels so genius. It's the same thing when I go to
Yeah.
like planned cities or like neighborhoods that
Mm-hmm.
are just intentionally laid out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the
Mm-hmm.
aesthetic is there, but then also the ease and flow of use is there.
Correct.
And it's so, so
Correct.
critical in what we're building and creating across the board. So I
Yeah.
love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
And I love industrial design.
I know, right? I am the same in architecture and all that stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it really, really adds to, I think, our quality of life,
Correct. Correct.
and we do
Correct.
take it for granted.
We do take it for granted. Absolutely.
So yeah, we
Absolutely.
need our
Yeah.
designers at the table. I love that
We do.
advice. That is
We
good
do.
advice. So bring them. If you're not the designer yourself, bring a designer with you early and
Yeah,
often.
exactly. Yeah, open the door to them.
Mm-hmm.
If you come into a company and you find that they are not part of that conversation,
Yeah.
have a conversation about opening them to be part of that table,
Mm-hmm.
and it's even a great experience.
Yes,
To be
absolutely.
part of those conversations for them,
Mm-hmm.
it's also when you talk about a cultural belonging,
Yes.
they feel like they belong and they're not separated from
Mm-hmm.
this leadership team, that they're
Yes.
inclusive in
Mm-hmm.
that leadership team. I think that's also very important.
Agreed. I
Yeah.
don't think everybody
Yeah.
wants to just be the hands.
Correct.
Some people do, don't
Correct.
get me wrong.
Yeah.
I've worked with people that are like, just give me the thing and let me do it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for the most part, yeah, if you really want to bring people along on the journey of
Mm-hmm.
what it is that you're trying to build and create,
Mm-hmm.
like you have
Mm-hmm.
to involve them.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
need to be
Yeah.
bought into, and then they will put in their best effort as well.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm curious, what has either who or what has been some influences for you and how you approach design leadership?
Well, that's a great question. I think that I'll say a couple people probably come to mind more than anything. One is a former advisor of mine, Dr. Leslie Noel. She's now a dean at in Toronto.
Awesome.
Has always just led with truth.
Mm-hmm.
She's always been a designer that is about inclusivity. She's always big on observation and listening, and so that type of leadership mirrors my leadership,
Yeah.
as well. And then has been very instrumental, in my career as well, too, of elevating my thinking
Mm-hmm.
around design, and particularly design research, which is what I was getting my doctorate in. And
Awesome.
so that is just a good model,
Mm-hmm.
to follow. I do like IDEO.
Yeah. Right?
I just
Yeah.
finished a class with them last
Did
night, as a matter
you?
of fact.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I'm taking 2 classes with them, and I go in saying, oh, I know this,
Mm-hmm.
but then I learned so much more,
Right.
So I really think that they have a really good model. And, it has been, and I'm gonna be honest, it's been debate,
Yeah.
particularly in pedagogy. Let me say that,
Mm.
about how much they have done or what they bring, but really who they hire. Let me say
Mm-hmm.
that, to
Yeah.
instruct these classes or create these levels of this curriculum has
Mm-hmm.
been good for me. And I've been in this for a while, and I still come out learning more,
Yeah.
So I just think they are really a great model for education,
Yes.
particularly when you just need a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily a whole degree, but you
Mm-hmm.
need just a little bit to keep you kind of knowing what's going on with the industry, staying relevant to the marketplace. I
Definitely.
think that it's extremely important as
Mm-hmm.
well. Yeah,
Yeah. You can tell that they live and breathe it, for sure. They have
exactly.
got such a passion for
Exactly.
it. And so, yeah, I love that they're
Yeah.
constantly like pushing design education out there. So for those
Yeah.
of you who are interested in kind of going down that rabbit hole, I do recommend and would recommend that. I
Correct.
think I was just so funny. I had this flash in this moment because it's not often. This is what I love about like podcasting is I get to
Mm-hmm.
sit and like focus on just one topic
Mm-hmm.
for about an hour. And it's just one of those things where it's like, it's funny, all the things that come to your mind. Cause how often do I get to just sit and talk about and think about
Yeah.
design? And it's
Yeah.
so good. And I realize now I was really fortunate while I was going to school in Chicago, I was
Uh-huh.
working full time and I would go to school at night, and during the day I worked for a graphic design firm.
Okay.
And he went to like the Institute of Design
Mm.
in like near Chicago, like
Mm-hmm.
studied Bauhaus, so like very kind of like old school like design.
Mm.
And it really, really influenced me early on, even though I didn't end up going in. Like, I actually chose copywriting versus
Okay.
design
Yeah.
because I
Okay.
was like, I just don't want to. At the time, I'm dating myself. It was like you had to have a big tower and a huge screen, and I couldn't just
Yeah.
go anywhere. But I was like, I take my
Yeah.
laptop and go right across the street and even
Very
Marcus,
true.
which I would do. Great place to
Yeah.
write when you're talking to consumers.
Yeah.
Sit there at the cafe and do my writing. But yeah, I have always had such a tremendous respect for design and designers, and folks like you, and then my old boss that I worked with, just that are constantly like living and breathing it and sharing their
Mm-hmm.
knowledge in it. It was just, and their passion for it.
Right.
It really does have an
Exactly.
impact, and I love getting back into it.
Yeah, this is good. Hey, I could talk about it all day, but hearing you say about copywriting, oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, over the last 3 years, the value of a copywriter is a value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think because I took a class with IDEO, the storytelling for influence,
Yeah.
and it was great.
That's
And
awesome. I
I
have to check
say
it out.
that because it pushed to go beyond just the
Mm-hmm.
words, if that makes sense to
Yeah.
anyone. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely does.
And as a copywriter, you have this ability to just imagine,
Yeah.
and bring words to a page
Mm-hmm.
that people, like anything, they're going to critique, but
Yeah.
you have the ability to bring it to the page and people to be like, wowed, or didn't think of that,
Yep.
or put them in a world
Yeah.
that they never imagined they could be put into, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So,
Absolutely.
they're just that profession is very essential, regardless of how
Agreed.
fast technology moves. We
Agreed.
need the human body.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
am Right there with you. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And you're right. You get that chance to really impact people in such a
Hmm.
quick way. And I'm pretty sure like I still have like some of my like five favorite headlines like always at the top of my head that I will forever be proud of. And
Good.
it's just like 4 or 5 words, but those 4 or 5 words like carried entire campaigns and compelled
Yeah.
people to take action and do things. And I'm like, you did that with just a couple words.
And that's something, and that's powerful.
It really is. It really
Yeah,
is. And so, yeah,
powerful.
I agree with you. AI is it's a tool we're always talking about here at Together
Hmm.
Digital. We're not shying away from it.
Correct.
We are learning how to embrace it and use it to our
Yeah,
benefit.
yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, with all of this stuff, I think, even in the discussion of AI for like photography and
Hmm.
videography, because I have
Hmm.
friends in all of those areas.
Hmm.
And our conversation has been the people who will succeed and get through this moment in time are the ones that learn how to and harness and
I
embrace it,
agree.
because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, only good copywriters know good copy. I'm sorry, but that's
That's
just the way it
right.
is,
That is very true.
Good
Very
designers
true.
know a good design when they see it.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so there's a gentleman I know, Terry, I can't think of his last name right now, but he's an amazing 30 plus year veteran of food photography. And
Okay.
he has truly embraced AI, and his work,
Hmm.
Karen, would
Hmm.
challenge anybody to try to guess what is AI and what is not with him.
Oh,
But it's
wow.
because he
Uh-huh.
knows like intimately what
Hmm.
food photography is, what good
Hmm.
lighting, set, prop, like all of the
Hmm.
details of even
Hmm.
how like certain elements and pieces of food. Like I think he was looking at something once and he's like, cheese wouldn't melt that way. And I was like, what? How do you know cheese won't melt that
Ah,
way? Terry said, because I looked at enough melted cheese in 30 years to know that it wouldn't, like, that's like not the way that it would look. That's not right. I know that
yeah.
that's the AI. And so we still
Wow.
need experts in these areas to
Yeah.
really kind of keep that work elevated. So
Correct.
yeah, yeah.
And
Like,
he'd have to feed that to AI. It wouldn't
yes.
know. You know
Nope.
what I'm saying? It can't have lived experiences.
No,
You know what I'm
absolutely
saying? We're
not.
feeding it lived experiences.
It needs us.
Absolutely. So
Yep.
even when you go back to the research, that's research. Him
hmm
knowing that it would melt that way, right? So somebody has to humanly be able to position himself, particularly in an industry like that,
Yeah.
food.
hmm
Because we know food is experience. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? It's something that
hmm
we embody. We have to take part in,
Yeah.
in order to do. So you
hmm
turn around and move into the visual aspect of that. If
Yeah.
I look at it from this side, I need to be able to believe it, meaning
Yeah.
I need to look at it and know, oh, I want to taste that.
Right.
You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? I want
Exactly.
that. You know
It's a
what I'm
tricky one
saying?
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Because I also think even just your everyday average consumer, they can look and stuff and they can look at something
Yeah.
and they'll know. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not fooling us yet.
Yeah, exactly. And you always say in marketing that consumers know what they know.
hmm
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? They really do. Don't underestimate
No.
what they know. Yeah.
Don't try to get away with nothing.
No, don't try. Particularly now, no.
right? Oh, so funny. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your work with social art and culture.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's helping create like a deep understanding, community impact. How do you
Mhm.
see design thinking playing a role in creating more purposeful business outcomes? We've talked about like how it can improve your overall
Yeah.
business outcomes and
Yeah.
objectives, but what about purpose?
No, it's a great question. And I always appreciate people talking about social art and culture because I founded social art and culture.
Love
So
it.
it was, and the purpose of its foundation was to fill a gap.
Mm,
So, and it came about a couple years before I really knew about design thinking. But as soon as I did social art and culture was the first place I was able to apply it because I was able to use the knowledge of how to really design programs that were going to be impactful, right? The design programs and the social art and culture is based on bringing artists to another level. And how are we going to be able to do that? How are we going to be able to make sure we did life changing moments with artists and the communities that they serve? So this had to trickle down, as well. So we have spent time, sometimes a year, and I don't know a lot of nonprofits that spend a year in design before they introduce something to the constituents, the members that they have. But that's the things we've done because of the background that I have. And I'm like, we're
hmm
not moving until we know,
Yeah.
And so sometimes financially, that's not always the greatest thing. But at the end of it all, it ends up being the greatest thing, because the joy that we have, me as a founder, us as a board of directors, and the input and that we get from the people that go through not only the programs that touch the things that we do, they bring me to tears. They literally do. And that's the work that you want to do. That's the work you want. That's a feeling that you want to get when you bring something to the table that again, is really good design. So yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for doing that work too, because it is so important, to be bringing up and bringing in like the next generation and elevating artists and creativity, because I think sometimes it is in a society that feels very, very focused on results and productivity and, just get it done, get it done fast sort of thing, fast and cheap kind of a thing.
Yes.
It is so good to kind of get people to slow down and reconnect with that, with their creativity and with design.
And when you say that, there's a process to connect. You know what I'm saying? It makes me think of that when you say it. There's a process to connect. It's not quick.
No.
It's not quick. And sometimes you're even in a community, meaning you live in it. You know what I'm saying? Culturally, you may be part of it. And there's still much more to learn. It does not make it so that you already are knowing of everything. You still have a lot to learn to truly connect, because again, everybody has a different lived experience.
Yes.
And you want to know more about that when you're really trying to design something great, and you may have to, as we say, reiterate, until you get the right thing, so that they feel that they are engaged, involved, and they were thought about throughout everything that you did.
Agreed. Yeah. It's like they almost want to see themselves, their needs being met within that thing that you've created. And so that's why we connect to it. I love that. That's such a great thought. Such a great thought. All right. So looking at your career, what is a commonly held belief about design and business that you've completely changed your mind about, kind of from where you started to where you are now?
Oh, that's a great one. Good questions, Amy.
Thanks.
I think for me, what has probably changed is research has to be done. I am strongly a strategist. Absolutely. I think I came into design really being strongest in design strategy. And once I spent the time in research, sitting out at a park, observing people in order to design something, sitting at a food hall to design, then you're like, wow, you're like, And that is the part now for me in business can't be missed.
Yes.
Can't be skipped over, has to be put into the process, has to be financially put in as a line item. All of that stuff has to occur for research. So that's another area where you can sometimes not have a researcher at the table too. Sometimes they are brought in way too late. And they're trying to move around what is happening, trying to adjust and trying to find information because the topic and the question has already been formed. So research is it has to be part of everything. That is the shift that's probably happened with you over the last 3 years. No,
I would agree. And then the amount of, data that we have at our fingertips that we can generate and create. I would say of all the things, like that's one of the things I appreciate AI for, is helping me to analyze all of that data, to help me see insights and opportunities that maybe I couldn't picked up with my own like two little human eyes and brain, and I love what you said too about that creative and strategy too. I thought it was interesting when I first started out in the industry. Somebody came up to me and said, you should work as a strategic planner. You should be in strategy, not copywriting. And I'm like, aren't they kind of one and the same?
I was going to say, there's strategy in that too.
There's so much strategy. I'm like, why do we separate these things? Like if I'm in an industry where I'm writing to solve a problem, I think I need to be a little bit of a strategic writer personally. I think a lot of us creatives get thrown into that bank of like, oh, they're just creatives. They're over there, la-di-da.
And that just gets put on it too. gets put on it too. Yeah.
You're so
Yeah.
right. That
Mm-hmm.
modifier that really
Yeah.
minimizes their role.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I do love to see now that there are more like creative strategists, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
strategy is a part of what you're looking for when you're hopefully looking for content creators. If not, you
Yeah.
should be.
That's right. Add it in because you see entitled like content strategist,
Uh-huh.
now that you didn't see before.
Yeah.
So someone saying that to you just was behind the curve. They,
Mm-hmm.
needed to catch up a little bit,
Yep.
because it really is part of the thinking through process, that
Yeah.
creative thinking process that goes into content, goes into writing. It is
Mm-hmm.
part of the process.
It absolutely is.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. All right. So you've successfully navigated several industry transitions, which is amazing. And I think sometimes people feel that that's an impossible thing to do, which
Mm-hmm.
clearly it's not because you've done it. What role has design thinking played in helping organizations, and actually not the organizations, you stay resilient during
Mm-hmm.
change?
Oh, wow. I think that it is a tool in my tool belt that will never go away.
Yeah.
Right. So I have always been one to educate myself on skills that will be transferable across industries.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's funny because sometimes people will say to me, "Oh, it seems like you've done a little bit of everything." No, I
Uh-huh.
haven't. I've just done different industries,
Right.
and I view that as value because,
Yes.
I can go into multiple industries and not lose my skills, right?
Right.
And bring my skills as an addition to an organization or a client as a result of being able to do multifaceted in
Yes.
that. It's just the industries have changed. I've done healthcare, I've done entertainment, I've done, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Climate, but it's never changed. It hasn't been design thinking, design research, the strategy. All of those things are things that are transferable skills.
Yep.
They
Yep.
just move across industries. So that has been extremely helpful for me. And I've been purposeful in going after degrees
Mm-hmm.
that I know are going to go across multiple industries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so smart. It's such a
Mm-hmm.
smart way to work because at the end of the day, we've said this so many times on this podcast is that
Mm-hmm.
no career is linear,
Mm-mm.
and no one job is forever. And then we have a lot of
Yeah.
women who are being impacted right now by layoffs,
Yes.
and they just sit back and they think, oh, I've done and been all these things, but what does it
Yeah.
all mean? They don't
Yeah.
often think about what's the narrative, what are the
Yeah.
transferable skills,
Yeah.
so that I can champion myself and position myself. It's like they kind of just go in, I don't know, like just
Yeah.
almost shying away from instead of owning the power and the experience that they have. So I agree with you. I think look for those kind of common through lines for you. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
design thinking,
Mm-hmm.
continuing your education in that space, always learning and growing in that space. Yeah, the more types of industry experience you've acquired, gosh, how much better are you now? Because then all of a sudden, like you can, especially as a creative strategist too,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
imagine that you very much are,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
see like potential commonalities where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm over
Correct.
here in healthcare
Yeah.
and they have these systems, but also in banking,
Yeah.
there's like this thing from healthcare that I can take and actually apply that's working
Yeah.
well over here in banking. And it's like without that,
Absolutely.
you don't have that experience to bring. So it's like, why wouldn't you want to hire somebody that has cross industry experience? So people who are hiring, I'm talking to you too.
That's
Don't
right.
don't minimize a person, especially women, please,
No.
just because they have a diverse experience and background. Look at it,
Correct.
look at the whole and the sum of
Don't
the
label.
parts.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Don't label it as, okay, well, you don't know only this,
Yes.
Be glad for that because it does. It has also been helpful in lead generation and business development,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you've been able to see the crossover between the two and
Mm-hmm.
where you can apply some things, even when you're pitching,
Yeah.
a client
Yeah.
in that particular way. Because again, if you say you've been in healthcare for 35 years and you've
Mm-hmm.
only been absorbed in that, and
Mm-hmm.
someone comes to you and says, well, let's cross over the difference of the energy or
Yeah.
climate and how
Mm-hmm.
that's impacting your healthcare, which
Yeah.
is starting to happen actually,
Yes.
right? That's starting to happen. Like, oh, we can't stand over here, you stand over here, we got to stand together. It took
Mm-hmm.
someone to see that and
Yeah.
take these two industries and say we need to start working together and not
Absolutely.
be these standalone types of things. So don't do that to people,
Right.
as
Such a good
well
example.
as they stand, particularly with, like you said, so many people transitioning not
Mm-hmm.
by choice.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Yeah, being fresh eyeballs. I always loved being the new kid at my company. I'd be like, I don't know
Mm,
nothing, so I'm just gonna come up
that's
with some
right.
random ideas and I'm gonna ask lots of questions. But that should be
That's
us all the
right.
time, right?
There. We hope so.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So, for leaders who are just beginning to explore design thinking as a
Mhm.
growth strategy, what's one unexpected place they should start looking for opportunities to apply this?
Well, that's a great one. So there are a couple probably institutions that have been around for quite some time. Design Management Institute would be one. I would say they've celebrated 50 years this year.
Nice.
Would be a really good one to look at. Like I said, the Design Council in the UK would be good. Even if you live in the States, United States, you
Yep.
still should look at them as another means of doing that. And then there are, if you're in the Washington, D.C. area, there's something called Design Thinking D.C.
Hmm.
And they do, workshops, and all of them are interactive and engaging. Like they put a topic out and you discuss that topic, you work on that topic,
Oh, that's
which is
great.
good real time experience for
Yep.
people as well too. So, I think, and there's more of that out there like that,
Hmm.
where people are doing meetup type of things to get together. Because what I realized coming into this community, it's a big community.
Yeah.
It really is a big community
Hmm.
because people sit in different spaces within design. And again, if you're about solving problems, and particularly, like I said, the more complex they are, you understand that you need to gather around community. Most times you don't want a
Yeah.
designer who designs in silos.
No. Mm-mm.
You don't want that, because that's not its purpose. Its purpose is for you to move further out,
Yep.
and particularly how you're going to research, how you're going to strategize, how you're going to talk to people. That's a big part of it. So you don't really want a designer that just sits in silos and doesn't move around and have some level of community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Community is such an important part of that. It keeps
Yeah.
you connected to those who are passionate about what you're passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't, it's not like, especially if it's like a healthy community, it's not about,
Mm-hmm.
going over one or the other. It's not about
Yeah.
competing. It's really about
Yeah.
that collective knowledge and learning
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that really does make like a huge difference in sort
Yeah.
of your own ability to just even want to show up and like make
Right.
things happen.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Community over competition.
Yes, always, every time, every time, every time. No, I love that. And that's definitely kind of our motto here too. Because
Oh
again,
yeah,
I
for
think it is
sure.
just one of those things when you are sharing it passionately versus
Yeah.
competitively,
Yeah.
it's just so different,
It
And so it's like
is.
people are like, how do you stay informed? And, some people will list, and I love that you said community, because some people will list like publications, magazines, and
Mm-hmm.
newsletters, but all of that is in isolation. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
no commentary, there's no
Mm-hmm.
back and forth conversation versus when
True.
you're in community, you
True.
actually get to sit and have the conversation and maybe just critically think about it a little more critically because you're
Yeah.
discussing it versus just taking it in and then
Correct.
moving on to your next thing. So outside of just the sheer motivation factor,
Mm-hmm.
of sharing passion with people about certain things and nerding out like we did here on
Mm-hmm.
design today,
Yeah.
it makes it such a different approach to that consistent learning. And I think we don't necessarily always think of community as the answer for that. And it's just like, it's the
Mm.
answer to so much. So I
It
love that you've
is.
mentioned like the DC community as well. I know we've got a few members actually that reside in the DC area
Yeah,
too.
for
So
sure. Yeah,
I'm
for
sure they'll check it
sure.
out.
Another one would be the Design Justice Network.
Okay.
Most people in the Design Justice Network are using design for some social cause.
Okay. I love
And
that.
they created this network. They started in 2015, formalized it in 2020, and they set their own 10 principles
Mm-hmm.
around it as well. I've been a member for about 3 years now.
Uh-huh.
But you talk about robust conversation. Oh, for sure.
Oh, I'm going to have to
Oh,
check it out.
yeah,
I'm
definitely
going to check this one
do.
out.
I mean, they really talk about, and again, the community supports one another. So
Yeah.
there's always job opportunities that are popping up that they're like, oh, I'm only putting this here,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
because I know that this community gets it. I've seen that
Yes.
many times, that language.
Yes.
I'm putting it here because I know this
I
community
know you're
gets
going to
it.
understand.
Exactly. And we won't have to go through this process of do you understand it, because you'll be coming from this particular community. So the
Right.
Design Justice Network is a really, really great network. I instantly went into it. I felt like I they were holding space for me.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so good. That is
Yeah.
so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm going to check it out. I've written it down. I'm sure some folks here will too. Because it
Yeah.
just feels like, too, our responsibility, right? When you have a gift like
Mm-hmm.
this with the
Mm-hmm.
ability to either storytell or do great design
Yeah.
work. And some
Yeah.
of us do feel like we have jobs that don't satisfy a lot of purpose. And that's okay
Yeah.
because sometimes we just got to work for a paycheck.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, that's where you could probably go to try to find an
Correct.
opportunity to, give yourself a sense of purpose. And I do
Yeah.
feel like we have a little bit of a responsibility to sort of take those gifts and, give them back.
That's right. That's right. It's the paying forward. It still exists. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We still have to pay it forward.
Definitely. All right. My last question that I have for you before we go into the power round, and then I'll
Okay.
also check with our live listening audience to see if they have any questions,
Okay.
is we've talked a little bit already about creative technology and how it's continuing to evolve. How do
Mm-hmm.
you see the relationship between design thinking and business strategy evolving in the next few years?
Ooh, I think the biggest thing is, technology is going to play a big part in it. It
Mm,
really is. People are going to have to, if they're resistant to it, and I wrote about this many times, they're going to need to start to embrace it. It's how you embrace it, right?
mm-hmm,
So there's going to be a cost factor
mm-hmm.
to it as well, because
Yeah.
these tools, some of them are in beta,
Yep.
right now, and willing to do a little more negotiation with price.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are moving so fast, you're going to have to figure out how to get the cost paid in, because
Yeah.
they're the consumer, and we are consumers of it, are going to latch on so fast that they're not going to have to negotiate.
Yeah.
So I think technology is going to be a big part of business, for those who may be smaller at
Yep.
that point, not the
Mm-hmm.
big
Yeah.
corporations.
They're gonna take a while.
They're going to have to look at, even if they don't have a chief technology officer, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
have somebody in place to
Yeah.
understand and keep up what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
so that they're able to not get left behind. Because I
Yeah.
think that the digital divide is going to widen.
Yes.
It is not just going to widen amongst people in their homes.
Sure.
It's going to widen within business, and small businesses in particular,
Mm-hmm.
and solo entrepreneurs who don't necessarily have the revenue, sometimes not the education as well,
Sure. Yeah.
to be prepared to set a business up structurally
Yes.
to be ready for the level of technology that it's just going to move rapid.
Yeah. You were so right, Karen. It's such a small business advantage. So for those of you who do run and own and operate small businesses,
Mm-hmm.
like if you can be an early adopter, be an early
Yes.
adopter. It's going to
Yes.
let you, one person, three people, however many you've got, work
Correct.
like 5, 10 people. And
Right.
like you said, these behemoth companies that, again, have a lot more, not a lot more at stake, but I guess like they have a lot more rigor and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
bureaucracy and
Yeah.
layers and
Yeah.
legal that
Yeah.
is really holding them back from being
Mm-hmm.
able to jump on it and like
Mm-hmm.
leverage it. You are
Correct.
so right. And it's funny that this is coming up because it's come up so often lately. I
Mm-hmm.
just launched a coaching practice,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I saw that.
AmyVaughanCoaching.com. Thanks. And
Yeah.
it was all about authentic leadership, finding your authentic
Mm-hmm.
leadership voice. I want to help these women who are,
Yeah.
if you're looking a little dead in the eyes, to just really step into their own form of executive
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah.
And, but also in that, talking to some of my small business owner friends, being in digital and an early adopter for a lot of technologies like automation and AI and other
Mm-hmm.
back end platforms,
Yeah.
they're all like, you need to add this to your coaching like offerings. And I was
Yeah.
like, I would love to, because it is like it's like rocket fuel for a business when
Very much
you
so.
can
Very much
automate
so.
and make very daunting tasks for my friends who own like catering businesses, waxing companies, roofing
Mm-hmm.
companies, to like
Mm-hmm.
be able to operate like they're 10 years ahead of
Mm-hmm.
things with just a little bit of tech. So
Correct.
that was a great answer, Karen. I could not agree enough with you.
No, I appreciate that. I really do. Because I'm like, you could easily have fear.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The not easy part is you actually leaping in. You know what I'm saying? And actually embracing it, and understanding, how does it benefit your business?
Exactly.
How do you as a leader begin to grow or
Mm-hmm.
scale, depending on what point you're at, your business as a result of technology?
Yes.
A lot of times we're looking at from the side of, okay, how do we gain more money, or how do we get more clients, but technology is going to be like that other part
Yep.
of business as we move forward. I mean, it is now. It's just
It
like,
is.
I don't think enough conversations are being had about it. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the question. I just don't think enough conversations are being had about, particularly
Mm-hmm.
again in small businesses, like how are we equipping small
Yes.
businesses with
Mm-hmm.
technology strategies so
Yeah.
that they can be around much longer,
Yes. Help them
and
sustain.
exactly. And because we just cut a lot of jobs at the Small Business Administration
Yep. Yep.
and the IRS just today cut their small business and solo entrepreneur people,
We
who's
need it
going
more
to
than
help
ever.
us?
We need it. We need it more than ever. It's so true.
Yeah. So add
And
it to your coaching practice.
I will. Yes, ma'am. I will. Well, and it's like small businesses. I think I can't remember the exact stat. They create over 50% of the jobs in the country. Am I right?
Yeah,
Like we can't
exactly.
afford to lose them.
And small businesses train.
Mm-hmm.
They're willing to invest
Yeah.
in people. They
Mm-hmm.
usually hire within the neighborhoods and communities in
Yes.
which they live.
Mm-hmm.
This is important.
Yeah.
It's
Agreed.
important. Yeah.
Agreed. I love this conversation and our
Me
little bonus
too.
message here for our small businesses. We love you all.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's pivot over into our power round. So these are some fun, quick questions
Okay.
for us to kind of wrap it up. I'll keep an eye on the chat.
Okay.
You all can connect with Karen as well. There's a LinkedIn link up there for her if you want to
Yes, please
connect.
do. Always happy to connect. Yeah.
Love it. And then we'll jump into these questions before we wrap things up. All right. What
Okay.
is your go-to creative unblocking ritual when you feel stuck? What do you do?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm a weaver. A lot of people don't know
Oh,
that.
that's so cool. I love
So
it.
I will weave or I'll pick up some needles and I'm going to knit and I zone out.
I love
Yeah.
it. That is so
Mm-hmm.
good. That is so good. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I never could get the hang of knitting. I don't know why. I got crocheting fine.
Okay. Okay.
I
All
don't
right.
get it. I don't know if it's like easier or what, or just the way my brain wants to work. But I've never tried weaving. That's awesome. I'll have to take a
Yeah.
look at some of your pieces later.
Yes.
That's so
Yes.
fun. I love it. That unnecessary creativity is a great, great block. I think like
Yeah.
adult coloring, I was in
Oh,
calligraphy
yeah.
for
For
a while.
sure.
All that stuff
For
really does kind
sure.
of help your brain sort of
Yeah, you
go
need to
into a different
decompress.
place.
Yeah, you need to. You create people as a creative, and I could
Hmm.
definitely consider myself that. You need an opportunity to rest your mind
Yes.
so that you can continue to create.
Yeah,
If you're on
right.
autopilot like that,
Hmm.
man, 9 times out of 10, you're really not getting the best out of who you are.
No, exactly. Rest
Yeah.
is so important. So
Oh
again,
my
big
goodness.
note there to those who are on creative teams, fostering creative teams,
Yeah.
leading creative teams. Yeah, they need that.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it. All right. What's one unexpected object that inspires your design thinking?
Oh, that is a great question. An object. Oh, wow. What comes to mind is a pencil.
Ah, I love it.
I have been
That's
writing
where
in
it starts.
pencil for the last 7 months
Yeah.
and not in pen. It does something for me.
That's interesting. I love
Yeah,
that.
it does something for me. And it makes me not only because the writing makes me remember, right?
Yes.
But I think the medium of a pencil allows for sketching.
Yeah.
It allows for just impromptu
Hmm.
doodling, so it's a great question, but it's the pencil.
I love it. That's a
Yeah.
great answer.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing I like that is I feel like it allows for mistakes. So you
Exactly. I
can
can
play more.
erase too,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it does. I get excited to take notes with a pencil and not a
Uh-huh.
pen. It's been like
Yeah.
that for about 7, 8 months. Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
funny. You might have
Mhm.
me. I might be another convert right behind you because I have all pens at my desk. Everything's so permanent. But I love sketching too because that's another good kind of
Yeah.
like almost
Yeah.
mindless creative activity, right? Like
Yeah.
doodling is
Yeah.
actually very good for our brains.
Yes,
So
very much so. Very much
love
so.
it. This has
Yeah.
been so fun, Karen. All right, I got this one
Yeah.
last question, and then we'll wrap
Okay.
it up if we don't have anything else from our listening audience.
Okay,
All
cool.
right. I would love for you to finish the sentence. Good design is like good coffee because.
Good design is like good coffee because it energizes you throughout your day.
I love it.
Yeah.
It does. It does. I hope you all move into the rest of the day and the weekend, just not taking design for granted. Look around,
Correct.
see now that you know a little bit more about design thinking, what it is, how
Yes.
it works.
Yes.
Karen's given us some great tips and resources and places we can go to like learn and dig in more. But yeah, once you kind of unlock the idea of design
Yeah,
thinking, it's kind of hard to put it away because
it
it's
is.
so useful.
Very true, Amy. Great point. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Karen. Well, it was so fun talking to you. I'm
Yeah, this
looking
was
so forward
good.
to your masterclass that we've got coming up. We'll be sure
Yes.
to share that information in our Slack to
Okay.
our members. Everyone, thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's
Yeah,
always a good
thank
way to end the
you.
week when we do this. So, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in, and we hope to see you all next week. Until then, keep asking, keep giving, and keep growing.
Have a good one.
Produced by Heartcast Media.